The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland Women's National Team.
Katie McCabe, a huge goal.
I'm very proud of the team's performance.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello and welcome along to the COYGIG podcast. Kathleen McNamee with you here, and I'm delighted to say that I am joined by Ireland head coach Carla Ward. Carla, how are things?
I'm good. I look like I'm in a stadium, right? It's a great backdrop.
I was just thinking that. I was like, is that the Aviva at night, even though we're recording this and there's blistering sun outside?
I know. No, I'm good. No, thanks for having me.
Yeah, fair play to Gareth. He's up in the game on the background. It's very impressive. I mean, there's so much that we could dive into, but I suppose there's somewhere very important we have to start today, and that is that Louise Quinn has announced her retirement from football, international and club. I mean, what a servant to the game she has been over the years. What an icon of the game. You know, she's definitely one of the people that probably has been in my consciousness from watching this team for the longest. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
Yeah, look, first of all, she's congratulations to her and her partner. They just had the little one, and
very cute as well.
So she's welcomed, and in my opinion, the best job in the world. But look, I think you nailed it there. You know, she's an icon. She's a legend of Irish football. She's had an unbelievable career, and I actually tried to sign her a couple of times as a player.
Oh, no way.
Which we laugh about, yeah. So didn't quite work out, but. Yeah, look, she's done tremendously well. We've had a lot of conversations, and gutted for me, gutted for the Irish national team, and but I completely understand and respect her decision at this point in her career, and I wish her nothing but well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the club career she's had, you know, she's travelled all across the world, from Italy, she was in Ireland, she was in England, and what she's achieved with Birmingham even in the last couple of years. You know, she's been with them through thick and thin, and the ups and the downs in that club, and the amazing career she had with Arsenal as well. She really has been at the forefront, and I think a leader is probably the word that would come to mind for most people whenever it comes to Louise.
An absolute leader. She is. She's somebody that we're consistently on the phone with and seeing where she's at in terms of her rehab and recovery. But she leads in a way, on and off the pitch. She leads with the youngsters. She leads by example. She leads with her performances, the way she wears the shirt. And I think that, you know what, you could sit and talk about Louise, couldn't you, for hours, and what she's done for Irish football. But yeah, look, you've alluded to there. She had an unbelievable club career, but I think she'll be hanging those boots with a legendary status, that's for sure. And the impact she's had on so many young footballers can't be understated.
Oh, completely. And in a time where, in an Irish context, particularly over the years, where maybe we haven't had the attacking prowess that we necessarily wanted down the line, or maybe got the likes of Katie as forward as we wanted to, you could always trust Louise to get up there, get her head on the end of a ball and get it in the back of the net.
She can score goals, that's for sure. But yeah, look, it's she'll be missed, like I said, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. And we wish her well, both personally and professionally, because like I said, she's just entered a new stage of her life with the little one. And I'm sure that's going to take up an awful lot of her time.
Definitely an incredibly exciting time for her and her partner, and hopefully not the last that we see of her in Irish football in some capacity over the years. But we'll let her have a little break before I start pestering her about all that. Carla, it's kind of been a bit of a theme, unfortunately, in some ways, that you've had to deal with so many retirements. But I think there was always an acknowledgement after the World Cup and after not qualifying for the Euros that no matter what way this went, it was always going to be some sort of transitionary period.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, when I first come in, I probably didn't recognise how much of a transition. And then obviously when you get in and you get some retirements, and I remember speaking in a press conference, I think you were there, and where we talked about losing leaders, whether they're in the team or not, losing leaders from your environment, whether you're in football, whether you're in business, you know, whatever industry you're in, when you lose leaders, that's really tough, and you have to fill those gaps, and you have to then develop new leaders. And And that's been it's been a challenge, of course. It'd be a challenge in any walk of life. So it's something that we're continuing to work on and build. But you're not wrong. When you lose leaders, there's big gaps, big gaps.
And I think we've kind of seen a little bit of the effect of that on the pitch. Obviously, when someone new comes in, whether it's a manager or a new player, there is always a bit of a transitionary period. But I think you've said it, I think you said it as well after the Slovenia game in particular, that maybe there wasn't an expectation on both the fan side and on the team side that it would be as hard as it has been over the last couple of months.
Yeah, and do you know what? As well as losing leaders, there's a lot of hurt from not making the Euros. Let's be really honest. They're human beings, and that hurts anybody. So I think what the result against Slovenia was maybe a wake up of the reality of where we're at, what we need to. It identifies things, and sometimes you need a moment like that, and I believe that. As much as it hurt, and trust me, it hurt. It really hurt. But sometimes you need a moment like that to really deep dive into where we're at, what we need, what we're missing. And that allowed us to do that. And that's okay. But there is a reality of a transitional period. We are in that. We've got young players coming through. We've lost a lot of leaders. We're in a period where there's certain things we're changing, a style of play, new manager, lots of different things. So, it was probably something, like I said, that hurt, but something that was probably needed.
Mm. And how are you feeling about, say, that new crop of young players that are coming up? I know you had the development squad in the last camp and you got to see them a little bit. And the under-19s, a really disappointing result for them against France a couple of weeks ago where they were so close. But again, a really exciting group in there, and a group that's attracting a bit of attention from across the water as well.
Yeah, and I think that we have to do everything we can to keep progressing that, because from 19s to first team, the gap is big. It's really big. Make no bones about it. So we need to make sure that we continue to do the work in between and progress these players. The players that are here, they're players that are, like you say, across the water. So, it's our job to try and bridge that gap, because there is a gap. But it is exciting, of course it is. But like I said, the gap probably creates a little bit of work that we need to get done.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has been talked about quite a lot, especially after the World Cup, in that there was, I suppose, a hope that maybe that would be a catalyst for some sort of change in that gap that's there. But of course, these things take time, they take money, they take resources. If you had a dream world, would it be putting another team in there? Would it be having more regular development squads? What is the dream to plug that gap?
Yeah, of course. Look, 23s is something that would 100% be the answer. But like you've just alluded to, all those reasons, there are reasons, and there's other bits and pieces that we're not quite there yet. So it's just one of those where we have to work with what we've got. I'm a really positive person, as you can probably tell.
I think anytime I've talked to you, you've been incredibly positive about things, Carla.
I'll always try and find a way. Of course. And I think that there's an opportunity we can still progress. But yeah, look, if under 23s helps, of course. But the problem is as well with the under 23s, there's no major tournaments for 23s. It's all friendlies. And that's a UEFA/FIFA problem. But there's a lot of contributing factors.
Yeah, it's interesting that it doesn't exist on an international level, because you think it would be quite beneficial across the board. And I assume it's the same reasons that go into that as it does everything, and money, resources, the time it takes to set it up, all that sort of things. But you would think that would be something that UEFA and FIFA would be trying to encourage, especially because we've seen sometimes with female players, like, they mature into the game very differently than, say, their male counterparts do, and potentially get opportunities to be at those higher teams a little bit later than guys do, where they may be thrown into a first team squad at 16, 17, 18. Tends to be a little bit older on the women's side.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's, or even bring back the 21s, because there used to be, the 21s and 21 championships and World Cups. Even bring back that. That would help. But you're right in the late developers. I talk about this a lot because, you have a look at some players that have played for big nations. A lot of late developers, females, sometimes it takes into your 20s, into your mid-20s. And I remember a player I played with, Jess Clark, at club football at Leeds and Lincoln, and she went on to play for England. She didn't kick a ball. She didn't start playing football till she was 24. She made her England debut at 28. It's crazy. So there is that element. But for sure, I think maybe dropping it back down to 21 and bringing back the Euros and competitive fixtures, I think would be a massive help.
In terms of the squad, we obviously have some important fixtures coming up. The first one of those towards the end of May against Turkey, and that's away. We've had some good news stories for this Irish team recently. Amber Barrett, Claire Reardon, getting their success. Katie McCabe's going to be playing in a Champions League final also towards the end of May. That must be a good boost for the squad, seeing that success. And obviously there's some of the championship players as well. That's going to go down to the final day. Really exciting race for the WSL places in there. So stuff like that must be a good boost for you to see, so that when the team are coming back into camp and you are in that rebuilding period and trying to say to people, okay, yes, we don't have a Euros this summer, but there are good things in football happening.
100%. And you've just alluded to all of those moments. And coming down to the final day, we are going to have some championship winners coming into camp, whichever. I'm not sure who it's going to be yet. It might be a tough one for some of those. But look, we're going to have Champions League finalists, hopefully a Champions League winner. Obviously, Amber's coming in on the back of success. And I think, all of those bits matter. And it's reminding them when they come back in that, I tell them all the time that these are unbelievable humans, but really good players. And you have to keep reminding them actually how good you are and recognising what you've achieved, but also what you're currently achieving, and bring that into the international setup. So we'll be tapping into that for sure. I mean, listen, if Katie goes and wins the Champions League, I don't think she's reporting the next day, do you?
Somehow I think the celebrations may take over at that point.
Yeah, the human edge in me might be saying, I'll see you in a few days. But look, hopefully they can get the job done, because what an achievement that would be.
Well, I mean, only the third time that an English club has made it to that point. And then obviously the team that won it before, you have that iconic Irish trio in that team. Emma Byrne, who's on your coaching staff, and then Yvonne Tracy and Ciara Grant. I mean, what a kind of legacy to leave behind. I mean, I remember being in school and doing a project on those three and how they were my heroes, and now you have Emma Byrne on the side of the Emirates. It would be such a nice almost full circle moment with how much Katie has learned, particularly from Emma, but the others as well, to see her standing there with the Champions League trophy from an Irish perspective anyways.
Would be huge. Yeah, it would be huge. And I think it's funny because only a couple of months ago I said if there's one English team I think that can beat Barca, I believed it would be Arsenal. And I always used to think going up against, Arsenal was a tough gig. They're so dynamic. And I do believe that this is probably the one final that Barca probably wanted to avoid.
Well, as an Arsenal supporter, I hope you are right in that case. But having watched them against Chelsea at the weekend and then in the first leg, I won't lie, there is a bit of fear there. I mean, I saw them play at the Emirates against Arsenal a couple of years ago in the Champions League, and they demolished Arsenal on that night, but they were just such an enjoyable team to watch. You almost got to the stage you didn't mind because you knew you were watching pure class in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I do think that I think they can give them a game. I do. And yes, Barca turned it on against Chelsea. I think Chelsea and Arsenal are very different in their styles. And I do think the style that Arsenal possess sets out for a very, very good final.
Sure, look, if both Arsenal men and women manage to prove me wrong, I will not be complaining, Carla, and I will come back and give you your flowers in about a month and a half time or whenever we're talking to you back in camp. Just looking ahead to that camp, so obviously Turkey on the 30th of May, and then we have Slovenia on the 3rd of June, which will be a massive game. That one's down in Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, where the atmosphere was absolutely electric the last time the team played down there against France. How are you feeling now that we're kind of getting to the end of the Nations League? You've had a bit of time with the team. Results have gone maybe not always the way you wanted, but also other times the team have shown up and given the results you wanted. What's the kind of message, I suppose, going into these final two games? Yeah,
look, I think 3 out of 4 positive performances and results I think it was key. I think Slovenia, like I said, probably helped us deep dive into some areas, and I think going into this next 2 games, it's win both games. You know, I think Slovenia game, whilst we lost 4-0, if you had said to me, you're going to have 71% of the ball and 20-something shots on goal before the game, I would have snapped your hand off. But I think if we can be more clinical, we can convert them and we can start the way we did in the second half against Slovenia, I think we'll be in a good position. Now, what's going to be interesting, Kathleen, is if we win and they win, knowing that we've got to go to Cork and beat them by 4, I think could set up for quite an interesting evening. And I love to attack, so it will it'll be something that will be a very interesting evening when a group has got nothing to lose. So it could be an exciting night. Look, hopefully Greece can help us in the game before, and the Greece manager did say to me before he left the stadium he's gonna beat points off Slovenia, and I told him if he does, I'll send him a bottle of Irish Finest. But look, we have to look after what we can look after, and if we get to that final game having to beat them by 4, we'll certainly give it everything.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those situations where you just need to focus on yourself and what you can do, and obviously know the target. If that is 4 goals, it's 4 goals, but you can't control anything outside of your own team environment.
Yeah, because it comes to head first, you see. So it's 4-0, and yeah, we would have to match that and then look at the goal difference either side. But if we have to go for it, we'll certainly go for it.
Well, Carla, thank you very much for chatting to us today, and I hope the next month or so of prep goes well for you and the team. And as we said at the start, we had that breaking news today that Louise Quinn has announced her retirement from football, so I'm sure that there'll be plenty of talk about that for the rest of the day and across Off the Ball, so definitely stay tuned. The COYGIG Pod on Off the Ball is brought to you by Cadbury, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Thank you very much for listening.